They feel like they're missing an employee at their company, or they're like down a person kind of thing.
There's lots I want to talk about Shopify today, about kind of new stuff that you're releasing.
I've been working on assistants for 15 years now. When I think about what it looked like back then and what it looks like today with LLMs, I still feel there's like similarities in what the LLM is doing under the hood and the way we were modeling it. It's definitely been a wild ride, and I think all of that experience back then really helped shape what we're building here at Shopify with Sidekick.
What did Sidekick originally start as? What was the original founding vision behind it?
Sidekick's vision was and still is that it's your AI co-founder. It's somebody who you can ask these questions that you may be embarrassed to ask someone else.
All of these updates coming out today already incredibly useful. From a merchant perspective, it makes it a lot easier. What does this look like 3, 5, 10 years from now?
Even being an assistant for 15 years, it is incredibly hard to predict 5 years ahead. But I think
Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Liam, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. There's lots I want to talk about Shopify today, about kind of new stuff that you're releasing. But before we get into that, I'd love to kind of take a step back and talk more about your experience. Myself included in this, most people I speak to have a couple years of experience with AI or ML or anything in that sphere. And you're kind of one of those outliers in terms of, I can look at your work experience and see that from at least 2011, you've been working with NLP and machine learning. And something that I'm really intrigued about is, like, at that point in time, what was it like to work with the technology on the back end? And on the other side of that, when you're pitching this technology to TV, tier one mobile, or manufacturing executives, what does the technology look like for them, like user experience wise?
Yeah, it was very, very different back then. So I've been working on assistants for like, I guess, 15 years now. It's going to be pretty soon. So it's been a pretty wild journey. Technology looks insanely different now than it did back then. And in the startup, some of our competitors were using like rule-based systems, or, Siri had just come out or was not even out yet. So even early on stages, we were like, this is like, how is our number one competitor in the world now Apple? Or our number one competitor, the biggest company in the world. So it was kind of a scary moment. But when we stepped back and looked at it, we were like, this is actually an incredible opportunity, because there were companies like, Samsung, BlackBerry, LG. LG and Samsung, their phones and their TVs, they were looking for something quick to compete with Siri. So we ended up, being able to license our tech with them. They were called LG Assistant, Samsung Assistant, BlackBerry Assistant, etc. Up until we got acquired in 2017. But yeah, just being in that space at that time, the technology, we were using much different tech and models than we're using today. When I think about like what it looked like back then and what it looks like today with LLMs, I still feel there's like similarities in what the LLM is doing under the hood and the way we were kind of modeling it, with, classifying it into, is it alarm, is it calendar, etc., and then figuring out your intent within that, and then is the calendar event at 2 p.m. or who's in the calendar event. It kind of works the same now, but just the technology is far superior. So it's definitely been a wild ride, and I think all of that experience back then really, really helped shape, what we're building here at Shopify with Sidekick.
Yeah. Could you have foreseen how big it was going to become in this day and age? Like, did you realize like how huge this was back then?
I don't think so. I think it was just coming out in popularity, and then there was a lot of buzz when Siri came out about assistants. And then, there's a period of like, oh, I just use Siri to set my alarms and create timers. So then there was this like, everyone was kind of off assistants, and then, they became popular again, and then they became not popular again. And now we're at, a time where the technology has just come so far, and the models are, so incredible and so big that the capabilities that we're able to unlock, like even some of the stuff we're launching today with Sidekick Pulse, it's like a deep research system that can proactively bring insights to the users or the merchants. And this is something, back then we dabbled with, but it was always underwhelming. And I think with the technology and capabilities we have today, it's just a huge unlock. So it's pretty neat just to, see things that we tried so long ago and now, it's not that we couldn't do it, but it's just it wasn't as powerful. And now the value unlock is there with today's models.
Yeah, I'm really excited to tap into this, and we're talking about kind of all these updates that are going out today. Is just from a user experience perspective, what does it actually feel like from their end? Obviously with Sidekick and then Simgym as well is something that I'm incredibly interested in talking about. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, first, I want to get us up to the point where you're starting with Shopify. So kind of talk me through. I want to talk through your time with Microsoft. Can you talk through that? I think it was nearly 8 years. What did that look like?
Yeah. So we got acquired in 2017. And while I was there, I was director of the Montreal Research Lab, or co-director. So I led the applied research and the engineering side of things, where we were building out systems that would be used, NLP systems, assistance and machine reading comprehension, which was big at the time, which was reading large documents and answering questions over them. Very important for assistance, obviously. So we were working on, taking some of this technology and shipping it with some of the product teams in Microsoft, like Bing and Xbox and Office, etc. And then actually, when Mikhail was at Microsoft, the current CTO at Shopify, he came to me and was like, "Hey, we should build a chat system on Bing.com." And I was like, "Okay, this is great. Like, I love that idea, of course." So we actually, the acquisition team built the first versions of that, which back then was called Project Sydney. I think that name leaked, and it was cool to see, on Reddit when we launched in India, which was like 18 months or 12 months before ChatGPT, of people like, "Hey, how do I get access to this thing?" Um, and seeing it out there and people using it was pretty special. And then obviously ChatGPT came to North America. This came to North America, rebranded as Copilot, and I think everybody knows, the story since then. So it's been a pretty wild ride. And then here at Shopify, back to building assistants with Mikhail and Sidekick is just a pretty incredible feature that we built here.
What it feels like, at least to me from the outside, is that you've kind of taken a step up in levels of importance. Because when I think about Copilot, I think of like quite broad general purpose queries, and then you're jumping into Sidekick, which for small business owners, like you're handling someone's livelihood. How does that feel, that responsibility of building something that has such an effect?
Yeah, it's pretty special, I would say. Like seeing some of the reactions on social media and some of the video calls that our teams do with merchants, just on how meaningful Sidekick is to them and how much it helps them run their business, like small merchants and very large merchants. Like, even analytics, you being able to get deep analytics on your site just by asking natural language questions has been a huge unlock, because this is typically pretty hard for people to get very deep insights or very specific insights, because they would have to write the shop QL query themselves. So by being able to ask in natural language complex queries or insights that you want, and just having the model write this query for you and pull those results, and even if it's a chained query or it involves multiple things, it's able to tie all that together and bring that out. I even, I see people online talk about, Sidekicks like democratizing data, which is, it's pretty neat. And I think, we had Sidekick turned off, I think, for a couple hours one day, and just seeing people online talk about how, they feel like they're missing an employee at their company, or they're like down a person kind of thing, just because it wasn't available. So it's
Mm.
it's pretty impactful, and it's pretty great to be a part of that.
I imagine the vision for Sidekick changes over time, right? It's like you get this customer feedback, we go on to build this in feature set, we want to make it something different. What did Sidekick originally start as? Did it have a different name? What was the original founding vision behind it?
Yeah, it was always Sidekick, and I think we've kept pretty core to the original vision of it. I've heard Toby talk about this a couple times where there's a survey done years ago about merchants onboarding with Sidekick and whether they had an entrepreneur expert in their life that they could ask questions, or like a business owner or someone savvy in e-commerce. And some people answered yes and some people answered no. And then a year later, looking at those stores, I think something like, I don't quote me on the numbers, but like a large percentage of them that had a business expert in their life were still around in successful stores, and a much lower percentage of the ones that did not have somebody like that in their life either, closed down their stores or didn't go through the trial or never got their first sale. And so Sidekick's vision was and still is that it's, your AI co-founder. It's somebody who you can, ask these questions that you may be embarrassed to ask, someone else, or, you don't want to get judged, or you're just not sure, you can't find the right person to ask. So Sidekick is there for you. And, we're seeing, people say it's a lifeline for them, and it really helps them come out on top. And we're seeing, a lot more merchants get to success faster with the ability to work with Sidekick.
When you're talking about the idea of it being an advisor or a business partner, how do you translate that into the user experience? Because when I'm imagining that, when I've had people that are advisors to me, I'd phone them up, I'd have a conversation with them for 45 minutes, boom, I'd go and do my things. Like, how does that come across in the user experience?
I'd say it could be in a variety of ways. Like some of them are actually, even what you talk about. Some people are having, very long conversations with Sidekick, um, and getting that same type of experience. And and some people, I just saw actually a tweet from this morning, which I thought was pretty interesting. That it's like Sidekick's pretty great, and figuring out the exact question to ask is sometimes the hardest thing. And what's interesting to me about that tweet, and actually the timing of this tweet, and this is like an eight-figure brand analytics that they're talking about here, because Sidekick Pulse launching today, and just to get, what that feature looks like to users, it is Sidekick running as like a deep research, background job. It's given context on your store, and then it does its own research on your store, and based on that research dives into different areas, and then it's going to come back with a set of very actionable insights that it's found from carrying out this research for you, and then giving you the opportunity to pop this into Sidekick conversation. It makes a plan in the form of a to-do list and helps you walk through how to execute on this action. So, going back to your question, this Sidekick Pulse is actually doing the research and coming up with those queries and coming up with the prompts internally in order to bring you a very actionable insight that you may not have otherwise noticed unless thought to do that exact query. So like the timing of this post, and then I think someone responds saying like the most challenging thing is coming up with, the good prompt. And we're seeing people in the community share prompts with each other and just copy pasting them and then building these repositories and stuff. So another feature that we're launching is, Sidekick Skills, which makes it much easier to share prompts just as that deep links into your store. So these two things that we get back, and hear from about the community is really driving the features that we're adding as well.
Hmm.
And it's just so cool to see, that because we build in the open and we work so closely with merchants, and we're, across all the social media platforms listening to merchants, how they're using it and what they need, and then launching these things for them, it's working very well.
When we're talking about Pulse and it's this agent's going away, doing all this research, coming back to you with advice, what is different about that advice in comparison to Perplexity or ChatGPT? I imagine you're diving into a data set that Shopify and Shopify only has on an e-commerce kind of thing. But talk to me more about that.
Yeah, that's right. So, having Sidekick be in the admin and knowing everything that that's happening in the business within Shopify, and being able to tap into those results, and being able to run those ShopQL queries, and just like the very specific contextual information that we have on the business, and Sidekick, being able to use that to help the user, I think is a pretty big differentiator. Of course, like, it has it can call the web and get some market trends and this kind of thing as well, which it does, and ChatGPT can do that. But the power is really just, how contextual we can be to their business, and everything about their business. So instead, if I think back to, how we tried to be proactive in the past, one of the things missing was, like, how do you be so contextual? These models can't really handle that much context, and then all the insights that were, proactively pushed to users, they didn't have as much value, or they were a little bit underwhelming or gimmicky. But now that we have this context and the power of the models, and the ability to do this, I think by doing this in Sidekick, it's a real unlock for merchants.
Yeah. I want to take things outside of the actual feature for a second. And kind of what I'm curious about is how you decide what features to build. Are you using a combination of social listening? Like, where are you getting all this feedback from? And then I was listening to a podcast that you were on back in August, Dev Interrupted, and you were talking about using LLM as a judge for a non-technical person such as myself. Talk me through that back to front.
Yeah, this is a great question. And it all actually combines together with how we decide, what features to build. So we have, call it a flywheel that's kind of running. One, we have explicit, feedback from the users in the app. They can thumbs up and thumbs down thing and leave comments. And, we're gonna look through these things and see what's missing, and start building out some of these things, because a lot of things that people comment on are pretty similar. So we're able to identify things there. The LLM as a judge is also part of our flywheel that goes into this. And that is basically, we have product experts on our team, and they can look at a conversation and say, is this conversation great? Is it perfect? How is this conversation doing as a product expert? And then, if we have 5 product experts or something, they are going to have some agreement rate between them on how good a certain conversation is. So we have trained a model to be our 6th product expert. And we've got it to the point where if you have these 6 product experts, 5 are human and 1 is the LLM, if they all look at the same, set of conversations, and you randomly take out one of them and look at the other 5, can you spot which one is the LM, the judge, basically, or the model?
Mm.
And we've got it to, a state where we can't. I hate calling it kind of like a Turing test, but, like, I think that's a good way to think about it. Like, we trust our judge as much as we trust our product experts, and we've proven that with statistical rigor. And therefore, we can have that model be leveraged in order to find, conversations that aren't going well, and then figuring out, what features, is there a common set of things that people are asking, and then how can we put that back into our flywheel, which then goes into new features that we're adding. So it's a pretty sophisticated system, but it is so critical, to how we identify what to work on next, what features to build for merchants, and also when we do, deployments and we ship things, to verify that, we're always doing the right thing.
Awesome. One of the other kind of releases that you put out today is that merchants can build admin apps from a single prompt.
Yeah.
So for me as a business owner, what does that actually look like in my experience? I log on to my Shopify dashboard. I want to build an app. What would I build it for? How useful would it be? And how well does it actually work?
It works incredibly well. It's pretty cool to see. So you can do things like create an app that helps me launch a new product line, and all set up tasks, on one page, or something, so that instead of, bouncing around to different parts of admin and doing everything, you can just, bring some complex workflow into one single page app and just like do it all there. And it's going to generate, bringing in, the Shopify UI components, which are called the players components. It's going to have capabilities that Sidekick have, to do queries and pull in data and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty neat. Even on my store, like I've been, selling maple syrup and having a Shopify store even before I joined Shopify. So I actually like use Sidekick a lot to help run by my business, because obviously I'm very busy at Shopify. So for me, I can tell it's a huge unlock. And I think that also helps me, like I am a merchant and it's like it's a serious business. So that right there even really helps me understand, where merchants are and how to bring them exactly what they need. So I have, somebody who, sells at farmers markets for me, and they, on their own, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to start bundling these two items together." And they just kind of came up with this, this idea. And then my average order value for my farmers market started getting higher. And then my online average order value is actually lower. So, being able to, create an app that's like, hey, I want to bundle these things together, or like I want to create a QR code so that, the person who's selling at farmers market can show people who buy in person this QR code, and then they can automatically go to a cart with some kind of discount. So I can just ask AppGen, create me a QR code that adds these two products, maybe the bundle that he's doing, to a cart and brings them right to the checkout screen. And then, he can just show that QR code to those people at the market, and maybe their next order they do online, and then they become normal online customers. And this would be pretty hard to do otherwise, or there's challenges to doing these things. So it's pretty neat to see that. And then like bringing that back to Sidekick Pulse, that insight of the fact that my POS sales average order value was high because of bundling, and my online store average order value was lagging. That is something that Sidekick Pulse brought to me. I was like, hey, consider making this bundle. Which, I just looked at this, this morning, and now I'm definitely gonna, post editions. I'm definitely gonna be creating the same bundle that, they have at the farmers market. So it's just everything, it's just this cycle of flywheel, constantly improving stuff, and just bringing that value to merchants.
Is that a mandate for anyone working on this project? They have to have their own Shopify store selling something.
Uh, Everyone has a Shopify store. Not everybody has like it in as an actual business. I know anyone on Sidekick has an open invitation to me to be, a full staff member of my store, so they can play with it and try it and everything. Sometimes I get, I'll log into my store, or I'll log into my website, or go to my website, and I'll see like a random product image or a new product that like leaked out into my production store, like a blue worm, or, some kind of random product that someone made and actually saved. So, but it's all fine. I think I'm happy that, people can do this. And there are certainly, plenty of people at Shopify that have stores, and I think it really helps.
Yeah. As a user yourself with access to all of the different tools, all the different settings, all the different apps, like what have you found incredibly useful so far as a business owner? Is it the skills? Is it the flows? Is it the ability to make an app? Like what's actually making the biggest impact for you?
Yeah, for me, it's one, analytics. I think this is like pretty consistent across a lot of folks, and the ability to like quickly get to different places on admin, or if I want to check inventory, in a certain market versus like the farm store, and just being able to ask that and just have it there. Like sometimes I'm at a market and I'm on my phone, and I don't want to navigate around to get to that inventory, or to figure out how much I have left, or, do I have some back at the shop and I gotta go get it and bring it here. Like, just these quick queries to Sidekick that can get me this information right away, rather than me have to like navigate around to find my different POS locations and check the inventory for the specific item. It's just expediting that into something that I can do in the field or like quickly at home or quickly on the computer. It's big. And then the other thing is creating like something like creating a new product, or creating product images or augmenting my product images. Like, I'm not a professional photographer, so I have images in my maple syrup bottles, and then giving them a very nice background, or like a studio look, or this kind of thing. Um, which is also something that you can really now do at Editions, or with this launch today too. So it's pretty, like, all these things just add up to a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I had a Shopify store years ago. I think I was trying to drop ship travel accessories when I was 17 or something, and I
Yeah.
remember the pain of trying to find good product images. There was nothing you could do at that point. If the images were shitty, then that was you. You were sorted. Anytime you wanted to change anything, you're having to navigate through settings and things like that. And you're kind of describing this utopian future where even e-commerce becomes almost incredibly fun,
Yeah.
conversational. Like, what is the North Star here? What is this gonna become?
Yeah, I think vibe entrepreneurship is something that, like, people talk about sometimes, sometimes here, and I think and then you saw my Dev Interrupted podcast about, like, vibe coding, and vibe evals, and, like, why you should have more principled evals and this kind of thing. So, but vibe entrepreneurship is definitely very cool. Like, uh even another big thing that I've done, especially and this is actually another launch happening today, like online store editor, and being able to modify the theme of your store and add custom blocks to your store via Sidekick or natural language is huge as well, because this can be a complex task as well, and being able to just quote unquote vibe the look
Yeah.
and feel of your store. It's all staging for you, so you can choose to save it and modify it and iterate, and this kind of thing. So it's pretty crazy when you think about it, and how, like, I can make a custom block with, like, maybe two images and then a diagonal slider between them to show the before and after, or and just being able to do that quickly without going and figuring out a way to make this block custom. Like, it's pretty incredible.
Talk to me about the themes for a second, because from my memory, if I wanted to change a theme, I would either one have to duplicate it and change it from there, and then when you apply a new theme to the current store, everything wouldn't format correctly. So you would have maybe three blocks would go to two, and like the text wouldn't fit in certain places. Like when you're talking about this product that's you've just released, this feature set that you've just released, everything just dynamically updates and works. How exactly does that work?
Yeah, they're staged, so you can make these changes through natural language, and you'll see it, like, you'll be talking to Sidekick on the right, and you'll be seeing them happen on the left, and then once you like the state of it, then you can just hit save, and they'd be live on your store.
Okay, cool. I mean, that makes a ton of difference again to the
Yeah.
user experience of like you just want to get out there and sell things, right?
Yep, yep, exactly, and
Yeah.
minimize, the time and effort spent on, just by entrepreneurship, and then you get out there and focus on the things that mattered most, and don't spend a lot of time on the things that, Sidekick can do very easily for you.
Your role as the director of applied ML.
That's right.
When you're speaking to your team, you're speaking to other executives in the company. What do you keep coming back to when it comes from a product perspective, when it comes to something you're implementing? You're having these conversations. What's the ultimate goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, does it meet X, Y, and Z benchmarks?
Yeah, there's going back to our valuations, that is a very important part of it. That when we, talk to, the execs, internal stakeholders, they're following along on these metrics, because as we, when we have this flywheel, as we notice things that, are scoring poorly on our metrics, that we're like, hey, we need to add this feature, hey, we need to fix this, then this flywheel is constantly happening, and these numbers are improving, and we're seeing this reflected, in online metrics as well, such as retention and usage and this kind of thing. So as we keep optimizing on our various evaluations, which, like I said, we have proven out with statistical rigor that they are doing and evaluating in the way that our product experts were or are, and then to see the correlation with these online and business metrics, we have very high trust in it. So when we meet with these stakeholders, we go through all these things, and we're talking about the features that we're adding and the things that we're fixing and how it's affecting our evals, and how much trust we have that our evals specifically correlate to value for merchants.
Yeah, what gets measured gets managed, I think, as a Peter Drucker
Exactly.
quote
Yeah.
said that as well. Is there is there anything you miss there at all? And I'm not speaking from experience, but is there anything you would miss with statistical rigor?
Can you say it again? Anything I would.
Is there anything you miss? Like, is there anything you don't actually capture with those measurements? Is there anything that you can't actually get a sense of?
Yeah, I think there's always things that are you changing, even from like the product perspective, like what we think of things. And we, as part of this flywheel that I talk about, we have, you know, our what we call like a ground truth set, which is like conversations that we are getting our judge to optimize for. And as we grow this thing with the way people are using it every day, and we want to make sure that our judge is always aligned with our product experts. So things can be missed for sure, and it can't capture everything, but the idea is that part of this flywheel, as these things emerge, then they get added to the set, and we're able to then retrain the judge to be able to take account for them. So I would say the loop of things that we're missing in evals and then adding them into evals and starting to capture it at scale is pretty tight. And I think that's definitely an important part of this whole, flywheel of constant improvement and constant evals.
Something I'm really curious about is kind of where your role lies. Director of Applied ML, you seem very deeply technical, but you're very involved in product. You're speaking to customers every day. Like, talk me through a week in your life.
I think, yeah, I think this largely stems from just being in the startup environment for so long as well, where you have to wear every hat. So there I was, I've traveled all around Europe. When we were, at the startup, we were, getting into car manufacturers and building voice assistants for them. So I met with like every car manufacturer, every phone manufacturer in the world, their execs uh, you know, selling to them from a product perspective, but also selling them from this is why our technology is better, and then diving deep into that. So just having that variety of experience by necessity, just from being in that startup environment, has really shaped the way that I operate now. And, internally, I would also say that I like often wear, a product hat, I wear the engineering hat, I wear the machine learning hat. Um, you know, Sometimes I say I wear the designer hat as well, but then the design team is like, no, we're just going to scrap your mockups, but nice try. But, it's, I do try to wear all these hats and be very involved in everything. So, yeah, in the week, it's a mixture of all these things. Deep dives on product, decisions. Super deep dives often in technical areas. Always trying to work with the team to make sure that whatever our current solution is, can we do better, and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And yeah, then the design and UX stuff and metrics. So it's a every day is interesting.
Is all of this true in terms of you wearing all the hats because of the nature of the role or because of you as an individual?
It's probably a combination of both. I would say the way, Shopify is a great company because it's highly innovative, very startup-y in spirit, and everybody is just so, so passionate. And I think when you get in that environment, that everyone, just because of, like, the passion is like everyone wears, a lot of hats. Even the product experts on the team, they'll dive into engineering discussions as well and get into it. And, they're very technical PMs as well. So, they wear engineering hats sometimes. So I think it's definitely a combination of my background and Shopify's culture and the kind of people that Shopify attracts. Because I think Shopify really attracts these highly passionate people that care so much that they just wear multiple hats.
Can I ask, why did you move from Microsoft to Shopify? What attracted you so much?
Well, I worked, pretty closely with Mikhail Prekin on, Bing Chat and Copilot. And when he came to Shopify, that was very interesting for me. So I had, reached out to Shopify about if there are any positions, and I thought it was a great place to go. And it's such an interesting company too. Like having a store anyways and running an e-commerce business and, just wanting to be at a company that is so innovative and can move so quick and really acts like a startup and has the startup kind of culture. I definitely miss the startup culture and, the passion and the drive and the quick pace of innovation. And I thought that Shopify also, had a lot of parallels with startup companies.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't say I've ever had a job with one of these huge multinationals, but I've got friends that are in those roles. And describing my work experience in comparison to theirs, I would much rather this as well. I don't know if I'll ever be out of startups.
Yeah.
Just to the nature that my brain moves at and how much I want to do in a day.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can go through that many layers of democracy to get anything done. It seems like a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, they're great. They're a great company, to work for and everything, but it is substantially different than a startup. And I think certain people are drawn to that, and certain people are drawn to the startup. And, I'm definitely, drawn to the startup side. And Shopify is like, like I said, a startup, but like also very stable and massively impactful company. So you can, within a month here, even less, like the amount of impact that we're able to drive is just, it's hard to get that elsewhere.
Yeah. I want to jump into one more thing that you guys are releasing as well. So this is the thing that caught my eye just because I want to think about it from my experience as a small business owner. So the launch of Simgym. So you're using AI shoppers to simulate buyer behavior before launch. So talk to me, just give me the overview first of all, and then I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask about it.
Yeah. So it uses, AI shoppers for, to be able to compare themes and recommend changes before you launch. So that when it comes time to launch, that merchants can, ship bold changes regardless of the amount of traffic that they have. Because my store probably doesn't have enough traffic to run like a proper A/B test and have statistically significant results. And there's a ton of stores out there like that. So SimGym is fitting into small stores and big stores because then you can, ship with confidence and, you don't have to run an A/B test where, 20 or 30 or 40% of your traffic is always on this experience that may end up being subpar. So it kind of goes both ways, but you can think of it as like an experiment simulator for your online store. So you can do many different changes or theme changes or anything to your website and really only go live with, the one or two that you think is going to be the best. So then you can do all these offline tests basically to ensure that you can be very bold when you ship.
How deep will it go? Because when I'm imagining something that would help you out there, when I speak to a product expert, say for example about a sales page for launching, they'll go into really finite details. So like your CTA button needs to be here. You need to have less steps in this. You don't want to collect an address here. You want to have a one-step checkout. How deep into that will it go?
It'll simulate, AI shoppers over any level of detail change. So yes, any pixel changing, you can run a simulation over it, and you're going to get these AI shoppers come to both treatments. So, even if it's the change of a button color on checkout or on your homepage, yeah, these AI shoppers are going to try both experiences at scale and, try to simulate what would actually happen with, real shoppers.
And where's it drawing that right answer from? So in terms of where it gets that data set to be like, this is actually correct? Are you taking all the Shopify stores you've had and being like, okay, we've got this one and this one, but this one's got a much higher conversion rate on a red button rather than a green button. That's the right answer for this. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's not like getting it from historical data or anything like that. What it's doing is, you have a change that you want to make. And well, let me back up. So there's similar to how we do evaluations, let's say we want to make a judgment for this thing that we know, can accurately predict whether, flight A or flight B is the better one. So we have this, and then it's creating a scorecard, just it is similar to how an online experiment would create a scorecard. So then it stages these changes, and it has these AI shoppers that we've, tried to prove are acting in similar way to online shoppers. So when they go to these two sites as AI shoppers, navigating these two pages, coming from, different areas and having different goals and doing it at like very large scale, and then building an A/B test experiment scorecard the same way that if you were to run a real flight, and then looking at that scorecard and saying, okay, this is, had less clicks here, but I had more clicks here, or this happened. So then you can not only see which one is better, but you can see the scorecard as if it was real and run against real people, and then take that insight. And we'll also, summarize that insight and give a recommendation, but you can look at the raw data and be like, this is why. Maybe it wasn't because of color, but it's because of placement. But you can see this detailed scorecard and come up with the next experiment that you want to run.
Yeah. I mean, obviously just being released today, but I'm assuming you foresee this being used more by smaller stores in comparison to bigger ones, because bigger stores have the actual option of just A/B testing, right?
Yeah, I think the big stores, the small stores for sure, because they get the benefit of scale. But then on the opposite side, for big merchants, if they want to run an experiment and, flight or experiment A or treatment A is much better than treatment B, if treatment B ends up being bad, but now they have it on like 20% of their store, they could be also losing potential revenue there. So by having the ability to run AI simulations as an experiment is very beneficial to big merchants for that reason. So it's kind of like opposite reasons why it's beneficial, but it's like hugely beneficial to both small and large. You can run many, many different experiments and then choose the top ones and put those live on your store as an online experiment.
Out of everything you're releasing today, all of the updates, everything you're sharing, what are you most proud of in terms of creating, developing, and launching? And what do you think is going to connect most with your users?
Um, I think Sidekick Pulse, just because being proactive is something that I've tried many, many times before, but just, always, it was always tough because like it always, couldn't be as personalized as we want it to be, or couldn't be as contextual as we wanted it to be, or like, whereas now with this, I'm just incredibly proud of like what the team built with this one, because it is very cool. And seeing my store's results And every time they show me something new, they're like, it's just like, oh yeah, that is an issue. Like another one was, so I enabled US shipping on my store, but there's two settings you have to change. So I changed one of the settings so people could do it, but my prices were still in Canadian, but people in the US could check out. So I got some US sales, and then people were, I had some people from the States message me like, hey, why can't I buy from your store? I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can, because like some people are. And then maybe they never end up getting a sale. So then I got a pulse that was like, you have this setting changed, but you don't have this other setting changed. Do you want me to do it for you? So I'm like, yes. So it did it. So now when people go to my store from the States, they get US prices. And then I got another pulse the next day that was like, your FAQ says, and actually this is still the case, your FAQ says that you only ship to Canada. And I'm like, crap, well, I forgot to change that too. So like this thing has, I thought I was just enabling sales to the States, but Pulse on two different occasions told me, hey, you're not done yet. And you still have this like discrepancy on your store. So every one that I look at of my pulses is just like, this is adding, like, these are real things. And I'm actioning every single one of these. It's just, I'm incredibly proud of the team, and being proactive is very, very hard. Been trying it a long time. And I think, this is something that merchants are going to love.
Okay, I was gonna say, based on the amount of passion you speak, with around that, you assume as well that from a merchant perspective, that's the feature they're gonna connect with the most, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Couple years time, like all of these updates coming out today, it's already incredibly useful. From a merchant perspective, it makes it a lot easier and a lot more fun to actually to run a store. What does this look like 3, 5, 10 years from now?
It's a good question. I mean, even being an assistant, for 15 years, it is incredibly hard to predict 5 years ahead. But I think, going back to the vibe entrepreneurship comment, this is, that is like a North Star. Like imagine you can run your business in that way and just focus all of your time, on the things that, can't be done on a computer or can't be done in this way. And I think that is definitely like a long journey for you to be able to, yeah, just do vibe entrepreneurship. I think that would be really cool if we can say we did this. And even, talking with merchants and seeing on social media the things that I'm learning about how they use it, even that every day or every week, there's, something new, interesting that I hadn't thought of. And so it's hard to think 5 years ahead in this state of machine learning that we're in. But if I just think about the North Star goal for Sidekick, vibe entrepreneurship, how can we just make you as effective as possible at running your business?
I love it. I think you got to coin the term value entrepreneurship at this point.
Yeah.
I think Shopify's got to hold that title, be like, yes, that was us.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be awesome.
I want to finish off with just 2 or 3 personal questions, just out of my own curiosity.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's so many different moving parts of your job, and I'm curious if there's any particular part of it that stands out as your favorite. Like, what do you look forward to most in the week?
I love getting into the technical details with the team. I think this is my favorite. Like when we, jump into a new idea that someone has or wants to talk about, or we've, built some prototype, diving into how it works, why it works that way, can it work better? Sometimes my team, may say that I'm always uh like arguing with them or something, but I will, whether I agree or disagree, I will pretty much always, play the devil's advocate and take the opposing side. And what I've learned that because then people get very passionate about things, and then, you know, they're defending it, and they're talking about the why and getting really deep into the why and really deep into technology. And then you're like, yeah, this is the best way to do it. Like, you thought about everything. You are so convicted that this is the way to do it. And now I am too. You know, whether I was or not, I still want to see that conviction and that passion. And it always comes out. And yeah, this is, my team may laugh because I've had, like, many meetings like this. And I think the team's just incredible. And we always come up with, like, really powerful solutions that I think are as good as we can do.
Mm. In a similar vein, when people talk about Andrew at Shopify, your teammates, other people you've worked with, what do you think people compliment you most about behind your back?
Um, I wonder what maybe. That is a good question. I would like I would like to think that people see how passionate I am about this space and assistance and e-commerce and just, like, the potential impact that we can make. And, I hope that they see that I also, like to dive very deep technically into things, or that they, have trust in my, not decision making, but into at least, having been working on assistance for so long, that, have trust in how bringing that experience can, like, help in these sessions that we have on where we're diving deep into very technical things. So I don't know what they are saying, but I hope people recognize, my passion about assistance, in general, and how much I love diving deep technically into stuff.
Awesome. And then I have one last question to finish off. I ask all of my guests the same question, and I've had every which variation of answer. And I suggest take 5-10 seconds before answering as well to have a think about it too. Andrew, why do you do what you do?
The one liner is, I don't know what else I would do. Like, I just love working on assistance, and I love, pushing. I just love how my career has been centered on one thing for the entire time. And it all comes, down to just passion on that topic. I'm just so passionate about assistants and agents, and where we're going with the technology on this thing, that I can't see. I don't know what else I would be doing.
Okay, sweet. That's a great answer as well. Andrew, I really appreciate you taking time with me today. If people kind of want to find out more about what you do, who you are, how do they go about getting in contact?
Twitter is a great way to reach out to me. I'm on there all the time. I'm talking to merchants. I'm talking to people using Sidekick, and, machine learning folks in general. So yeah, we can share my Twitter handle as part of this.
Awesome. Andrew, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks a lot. See you.